That's not your project anymore. That's what Marcus said when the presentation screen lit up with my designs. The boardroom smelled like leather and expensive coffee. I could hear the investors murmuring approval. My father nodded from the head of the table. My colleagues avoided eye contact. I gripped my phone tighter, scrolled to the email I'd been saving for 3 months, and chose precision over silence. No argument, no scene. I stood up, walked to my laptop, and hit forward. 30 seconds later, the projector went black and Marcus's face went white. Here's what happened next. The Seattle rain hammered the windows that morning, the kind that sounds like judgment. My father had built Innovate Tech from nothing, the kind of company where people worked 16-hour days just to prove they belonged. The glass conference room overlooked the sound, lined with awards and photos of handshake deals worth millions. Every chair around that mahogany table represented power. Except mine, apparently. That belonged to Marcus now. I'd driven in early from my Capitol Hill apartment, replaying Dad's voicemail from the night before. Big presentation tomorrow, kiddo. Make us proud. That was all I ever was to him. A reflection, an extension of the family name. Don't embarrass us. Don't show weakness. Don't remind anyone you earned this job. Growing up, we were the classic father-son dynamic you see in business magazines. The visionary and the heir apparent. Dad had spreadsheets and strategies. I had ideas and innovation. He'd lecture and get respected. I'd create and get overlooked. He said I was the technical genius. Mom said I was too quiet. Both meant the same thing. Invisible was easier to manage. The last time I felt truly seen was 6 months ago at the company retreat. Dad was in Japan closing a merger, and for once, the air felt light. The team asked me to present the new AI interface I'd been developing nights and weekends. Instead of the usual polite nods, they leaned forward, asked questions, took notes. Sarah from marketing said it was revolutionary. Even the CFO smiled. When Dad returned, I showed him the feedback emails. He glanced at them once and said, "Good work, but let's see some real results first." That night, I learned there are 2 kinds of invisible, being overlooked and being erased. I thought about those emails as I walked toward the boardroom, laptop bag heavy on my shoulder. Through the glass doors, I saw them setting up. Dad adjusting his tie, investors checking phones, and Marcus practicing gestures like he'd rehearsed this moment his whole life. He caught my eye and smiled the same way people smile at assistants they won't remember. The IT coordinator intercepted me with his clipboard. "You're Jake Morrison?" he asked. "Yeah." His expression shifted when he checked his list. "You're listed as technical support today." I laughed, waiting for him to correct himself. He didn't. Technical support. For my own presentation. I followed his gesture toward the corner chair by the AV equipment. From there, I could see the entire room, every handshake, every deal. But there was a hierarchy between us, literal and corporate. I set my laptop on the side table and stared at the presentation screen. On it, Marcus was loading slides I'd created over 3 sleepless months. My wireframes, my user flows, my breakthrough algorithm. But there was my father's proud smile aimed at someone else. I sat in the technical corner and told myself the same lie I'd told for years. It's fine. You don't need the credit. But the truth was pressing against my chest, quiet and solid. Maybe I didn't need applause, but that didn't mean they had the right to steal my work and pretend I never existed. I tried to blend into the background like always, but the corner wasn't quiet. Marcus kept glancing over, checking if I was watching his performance. Every slide transition felt like a theft. Every impressed nod from investors was approval stolen from me. Then Dad stood up and said the words that changed everything. "Marcus has outdone himself with this revolutionary interface." Revolutionary. My word, from my late-night emails to the development team. Then Marcus walked toward me, clicker in one hand, confidence trailing behind like cologne. He stopped just short of my corner, his reflection doubled in the window. 2 versions of him, one celebrated inside, one cruel in private. "Hope you're taking notes," he said, tilting his head. "This is how real innovation gets presented." I blinked. "That's my code on the screen." He smiled that half smile I'd seen since he joined the company. The one he used before taking credit for other people's work. "That's not your project anymore." The words landed so casually, I almost missed how devastating they were. That's not your project anymore. Like it was a business decision. Like I was a consultant whose contract had expired. For a second, I said nothing. My throat went dry, the kind of dryness that comes from swallowing too much injustice. Behind him, Dad was calling out, "Marcus, we need you back for the Q&A." He didn't move. He wanted me to react, to protest, to prove his point that I was just the technical guy who couldn't handle the big leagues. I didn't. I just looked at him long enough for his smile to falter. "You know," I said quietly, "there's always been room for both of us to succeed. You're the one who keeps making it a competition." His eyes narrowed. "Oh, please, Jake. Not everything's about you. This is business. You could at least pretend to be professional for once." I let out a small laugh, the kind that sounds like air escaping from a pressure valve. "You presented my work as your own. What exactly am I being professional about?" For a moment, the mask slipped. I saw a flicker of something, fear maybe. Then he straightened, lifting his chin. "You always overthink things." Maybe Dad was right. "You're too emotional for leadership." Dad. The name hit harder than I wanted it to. I pictured those feedback emails again, every line of praise for work that was about to be credited to someone else. "I'm not emotional," I said. "I just don't like watching people steal." He rolled his eyes. "You sound paranoid and bitter. Face it, Jake. Nobody needs your permission to succeed." He turned back toward the presentation area, leaving a trail of smugness and stolen credit. I watched him go, his designer suit perfectly pressed, and felt the familiar burn behind my eyes. But this time, it didn't hurt the same way. It burned cleaner. When he resumed his position at the front, I opened my laptop. The email I'd been saving sat in my drafts folder, subject line simple, project ownership documentation. I traced the cursor over the send button once, then clicked. If they wanted to play corporate games, fine. But I wasn't playing without ammunition. For a while, I just sat there, watching Marcus gesture at my slides, listening to investors praise my algorithms in his voice. It was supposed to be my breakthrough moment, the presentation that would prove I was ready for leadership. I imagined Dad finally seeing me as an equal, colleagues respecting my vision, Marcus learning that talent couldn't be faked. The same recognition I'd worked toward my whole career, now happening 20 feet away with someone else's name on it. But recognition cuts both ways. I stood up slowly, my reflection catching in the rain-streaked window. Inside my laptop, the email was already traveling through the company's servers, copying every stakeholder who mattered. It wasn't just evidence. It was justice, something that could shatter the illusion Marcus had built out of my work. 3 weeks earlier, I'd been careful to document everything. Every late-night coding session, every breakthrough moment, every email thread where I'd shared ideas with the team. When you work for a family company, you learn to protect yourself. The documentation was comprehensive, timestamps, version histories, even screenshots of my design software showing creation dates. Marcus had been sloppy, assuming no one would question the golden boy. Before the presentation ended, I walked to the back of the room where the company's general counsel sat taking notes. Sarah Chun had been Dad's lawyer for 15 years, sharp enough to spot intellectual property theft from across a courtroom. "Interesting presentation," I said quietly. She looked up, pen poised. "Your work? Check your email." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the notification, then at me, eyebrows rising. "How long has this been going on?" "Today's just the most public example." She nodded slowly, already scrolling through the attached documentation. "This is a problem." At the front of the room, Marcus was fielding questions about implementation timelines, technical specifications he couldn't possibly understand. Dad beamed with pride. The investors leaned forward, impressed by innovation they thought belonged to the CEO's protege. Then Sarah's phone rang. She answered with a crisp, "Chun," listened for 30 seconds, and walked straight to Dad's chair. She whispered something that made his face drain of color. The projector went black. It happened without warning. One moment, Marcus was mid-sentence about user engagement metrics. The next, the screen showed nothing but blue. He tapped the clicker frantically. "Technical difficulties," he laughed, but his voice cracked. Dad stood up. "What's the problem?" Sarah had moved to the front of the room, her expression unreadable. "We need to pause this presentation. There's been a legal concern raised about project ownership." The room fell silent. Investors exchanged glances. Marcus's face went white. "What kind of concern?" "The kind that involves documented evidence of intellectual property theft." A collective intake of breath rippled through the room. Marcus looked at me for the first time since his smug victory lap. "This is Jake," he said, voice shaking now. He's trying to sabotage the deal. Sarah opened her laptop. Mr. Morrison documented every stage of this project's development. Creation dates, code commits, design iterations. All of it predates your involvement by months. Dad's voice was deadly quiet. Marcus, he's lying. He's jealous. He's always been jealous that I got promoted instead of him. Stop. The single word cracked through the room like a gavel. Sarah projected her laptop screen onto the wall. Email after email, code repository after code repository, all time-stamped and verified. This is 3 months of development work, all attributed to Jake Morrison, all completed before Marcus Chun joined this project. Every face had turned toward Marcus now. The investors were taking notes. A board member whispered to her assistant. Someone's phone camera was definitely recording. Marcus's perfect presentation was dissolving, and he couldn't code his way out of it. He spun toward Dad. You have to believe me. I improved his work. I made it presentation ready. You stole it, Dad said quietly, his voice shaking now. You took credit for my son's work. He reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, and showed the screen to the room. This is a text from Marcus last week. Don't worry, your kid will never know what hit him. By the time I'm done, this project will be mine. Marcus stared at the phone like it was evidence in a murder trial. You can't show them that. That's private. Not anymore, Dad said. You humiliated my son. You tried to steal his career. Someone turned off the presentation system entirely. The room fell into a silence so deep it hummed with tension. Then came the sound the investors would remember. Marcus's portfolio hitting the floor as security appeared at the door. This is insane, he shouted, voice breaking. Jake's behind this. He set me up. Sarah exhaled slowly. The only thing Jake did was document his work properly. Outside, I'd stopped by the elevator, watching the rain streak down the lobby windows. The sound from the conference room carried clearly. Shouting, chairs scraping, the dull thud of a briefcase being packed in a hurry. The sound I'd waited months to hear. Not out of cruelty, but justice. Inside, Marcus's career was unraveling. You'll regret this, he shouted, but his voice was already fading as security escorted him out. Dad appeared in the doorway, looking older than he had that morning. Son. For the first time in years, the word meant something. I'm sorry, he said. I should have seen it. I nodded, not trusting my voice yet. The presentation, he continued. It's yours. It was always yours. Behind him, the investors were filing back into the conference room, notebooks ready, respect finally aimed in the right direction. By the time I finished the real presentation, the one with my name on every slide, the Seattle sky had cleared. The city stretched out below, sharp and clean in the afternoon light. The investors asked technical questions I could actually answer. Dad took notes instead of checking his phone. Sarah smiled from the back of the room. When I stepped into my office afterward, it smelled faintly of coffee and possibility. The rain had stopped, and my window looked out over Elliott Bay. I sat at my desk and stared at the email thread that had started everything. Marcus's arrogant messages, my careful documentation, the chain of evidence that had saved my career. A new message appeared from Dad. Board meeting tomorrow. Time to discuss your promotion. That was when I knew. The corner chair was behind me. The stolen credit was returned. The invisible sun had finally been seen. I put the phone down and opened my laptop to a new project file. This time, I'd build something they couldn't steal, a future with my name on it from the very first line of code. At my father's company, I was seated in the corner like technical support. This afternoon, I'm sitting in the executive chair that was always mine. Same silence, different meaning. Back then it was invisibility. Now it's power. Sometimes the loudest victory isn't a confrontation. It's the sound of truth finding its way to the people who matter. They thought I'd always stay quiet, grateful for whatever recognition they threw my way. But I don't stay quiet anymore. I don't let people steal what I built. I document everything. If you've ever watched someone take credit for your work, know this. The truth has a way of surfacing. Sometimes you just need to help it along. Tell me, have you ever had to fight to get credit for something you created?